Good morning and Jai Bhagwan. Welcome to Bhakti House this morning. Here we go. Oh, look, here we are, live on Facebook TV. Let's chant the Asatoma prayer. Oh, it's Mantra Monday. Asatoma prayer here on my right. So the first line says, Asatoma Sadgamaya. This means lead me from the unreal to the real. The next line says, Tamasoma Jyotir Gamaya. This means lead me from darkness to light. Third line, Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. This means literally lead me from death to immortality. Not a really practical thing because, despite what all the little memes and everything say, we're not dying every single day. A practical application of this is lead me from a time-bound consciousness where I am worried about yesterday, worried about tomorrow, and that's all I can focus on, to a timeless state of being where I'm focused right now. Right now may include taking care of yesterday. It may include preparing for tomorrow, but the focus is now. The next line on the card here, it says Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu. Actually, the next two lines, Guru Devo Maheshvara. First off, obviously it's talking about the Guru, and so does the next couple of lines. But what does this Brahma, Vishnu, and Devo Maheshvara mean? Well, first off, who is this Guru it's talking about? It's not talking about me. It's not talking about Gurudev. It's not talking about Bapaji. It's talking about you. You are this true Guru that this mantra is about. Brahma represents creation. You do not create the circumstances you find yourselves in. You may have had some influence over the circumstances you find yourself in, but you don't create all of the circumstances. You do, however, create what those circumstances mean. You create your own experience out of the circumstance, which is why two different people in the same circumstance can have two very, very different experiences. Vishnu represents stability and preservation, so we can sustain or preserve the experience that we create. Devo Maheshvara is another name for Shiva, or transformation. That we also have the power to transform our experiences. What do those three things mean? They mean you create all of the wonderful and all of the horrible things in your life. You don't create the circumstance. The circumstance may be horrible, but it's up to you whether you create something horrible or wonderful out of it. Sometimes we don't have any choice but to create something horrible out of the circumstances. And then we can either sustain that, or we can transform it. And there are plenty of stories of people who have done all of that. Yourself probably included. The next two lines, so those first two lines, Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshvara, mean you have the power. You may not be strong enough on your own. Maybe you need to do some spiritual exercise, as it were. We call that yoga. To develop the capacity for you to sustain what's helpful and transform what's been unhelpful. Not a problem. We all need that. Next two lines, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, this means the Guru, this true Guru that we all are, is the Supreme Absolute. It is within each one of us. And Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha means we welcome this Guru. We're glad to recognize this about ourselves and about others. The next line is actually the most important of them all. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Everything in the Asatoma prayer can be used to create peace. But really what it means is everything can be used to create peace, even those horrible experiences. we can use them to create peace. Maybe not immediately. Have a good day at school. No, child number 4 heading off to school this morning. We can use everything to create peace. Love you. And sometimes, again, we need to have a little bit of help, a little bit of encouragement. Maybe we need to develop some capacity. Yoga is a great discipline to help with this. In fact, that's its whole purpose. Many other disciplines as well, but that's the purpose of yoga. The last 2 words on the card, Jai Bhagwan. Jai means victory. Bhagwan means divine, or this true guru, which would be you. Victory to you. Victory to the divine, because you are divine. So chant along with me, if that's appropriate for the circumstances in which you find yourself. And if it's appropriate for your circumstances, let the eyes close if they're still open. Bring your focus up to the third eye, center of the eyebrows toward the center of the forehead. As you inhale, bring the hands to prayer position. As you exhale, let the eyes open. Jai Bhagwan. Now, in most other traditions of yoga, the phrase, the greeting, the salutation, and the goodbye, it's namaste. Bapaji asks that we greet one another with Jai Bhagwan. That we recognize you are divine. And that we also recognize, oh, I am also divine. I am that. You are that. Not this and that. So, freedom. Freedom. Oneness is freedom. So last time we read about cutting the root of suffering. And we can cut the root of suffering by recognizing the thing that's causing us suffering really is ignorance. Ignorance of who I am, who you are. And as we resolve these things back to that, we can begin to, and we realize and we recognize who I am, who you are. We recognize I am that. It begins to remove, begins to cut that root of suffering. Or as Swami V has been calling it, sorrow. But now he switches and he starts to use the word pain. And he says in 17, how to avoid contact with the experience of pain. He's not talking about how to avoid pain when you step on a thorn. How to avoid pain when you're injured. How to avoid pain even at someone's death. Rather, he's talking still about sorrow. And by sorrow, the word we commonly use is suffering. Pain and, you heard it in your head, didn't you? Suffering. Pain and suffering. They seem to go hand in hand. Pain is unavoidable. It is part of life. You are going to stub your toe. Something uncomfortable, something painful is going to happen. I had one student on Saturday who held one pose for a very, very long time and reported yesterday, there's some physical pain. Apparently my body may have needed that at the moment, but boy, it's sure telling me about it now and being a little noisy about it now. So when he asks the question, how to avoid contact with the experience of pain, he's not asking, how do I keep from hitting my thumb with a hammer and feeling pain? Not possible. You hit your thumb with a hammer, you will feel pain. But rather, he's talking about how to avoid this self-created pain called suffering that we inflict upon ourselves after we smack our thumbs. How to avoid contact with the experience of pain by understanding the structure of the experience. What is the structure of experience? The division, important word. He uses polarization. Gurudev often talks about polarity, two sides of the same coin. This is not what he's talking about. He's talking about polarity. Let's move things far apart. Separate them. Division. Yoga is not division. The division or the polarization of experience into the experiencer and the experience, smashed thumb, and the subsequent conjunction or contact of the subject and the object of the experiencing and this can be avoided. So I've created separation, even though it's my thumb over there, and now all I can do is focus on the pain in my thumb. Experiencing being the sole reality, the subject and the object are of identical nature, and thought is the dividing agent. My thumb's not actually separate and over here, but I start thinking about it. Oh, thumb, 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 thumb. I start to create some separation. I try to avoid the pain, and by avoiding it, I actually come into contact with it in an inappropriate way. Thought is of pain, pleasure, etc., and thought experiences pain, pleasure, etc. by the psychological action of division and contact. I want to avoid it, I want to avoid it, I want to avoid it, but I can't avoid it. The possibility of the avoidance of pain is because of the unity of the seer experience and the seen, unity of the seer, the experiencer, and the seen, the experience, without a division. I don't suffer the pain, or rather the pain doesn't cause me suffering until I start to think about it. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. But what is the suffering? The suffering comes from, oh, I'm such an idiot. Oh, I don't like this. Oh, this is horrible. Life is awful. Oh, will this never end? And so I'm still feeling this. But on top of feeling this, I'm now creating thoughts that are enhancing everything I feel, and not in a helpful way. And he hints at here the way to prevent that suffering is get out of the thought and get into what is actually felt. So yes, actually feel the smashed thumb, the broken heart, the aching stomach, the whatever it is, more intently and more intimately. What is the object, he says in 18, and how does it come into being? The object of the experiencing is threefold in nature. The light of intelligence, something is seeing it. Dynamic activity, smashed thumb, and dynamic activity, the thoughts, smashed, and material existence, the smashed thumb. While the external cosmos is the object of the senses, they themselves are regarded as the object of experiencing by the ignorant. Both the external cosmos and the internal experiencer being indivisible from the experiencing. He's saying we tend to kind of create these layers of separation. And in the beginning, they're actually kind of helpful. For me to realize, oh, I'm not my throbbing thumb, is helpful. In the beginning, I am experiencing my throbbing thumb is helpful in the beginning. But then we can even use that to create suffering. And in the end, we need to, instead of division, recognize that this is a oneness. That there is no distinction between thumb, experience of thumb, and the thing experiencing the thumb, that they are all within the experiencer. They are all within consciousness. Yet the objects help the intelligence to realize its true nature by intelligent experiencing, and thus freed from ignorance. So ignorant experiencing is, and non-ignorant experience looks like, they look the same. They look identical. But one, I'm resisting what's happening. I'm fighting against what's happening. I want to stop and change what has happened so that I no longer feel it. That's ignorant experiencing. This intelligent experiencing is me fully experiencing this, not resisting it, moving with it. And they look identical from the outside. But I'll tell you from a smashed thumb the difference. The difference is, one, is just screaming meanies inside, and it's all kinds of horrible, and the other one is curled up on the floor just shaking like a leaf. Literally his blood is dripping out of my fingers because my thumb is smashed so bad 5 years ago. And my wife coming up and saying, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong? And not being able to talk because I'm still just shaking with the thumb. And then as the shaking came to an end and the thumb actually felt a little better, I said, I need some Band-Aids, I've smashed my thumb. It's actually just the thumbnail, but couldn't tell. It was wrapped up in my hand. And we bandaged it up and it healed up pretty quickly. And those types of experiences are helpful because we begin to recognize that the mind doesn't have to get involved for the thing to be resolved easily, simply. Such objects may even be of different kinds or categories. They can be special, supernatural experiences. They can be commonplace, smashing a thumb, and routine experiences. They may have distinguishing marks or characteristics. They may be subtle without distinguishing marks or characteristics. And their qualities may be in different stages of development. Simply, the entire cosmos, including the external world and the internal sensory system, is the object. Don't create separation from what you experience. And again, that sounds exactly the opposite of what we teach in the beginning of yoga. You are not all of these experiences. You are the one observing all of these experiences. And so it creates a bit of a separation. Experience, I'm observing, 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 observing. Experience, I am observing, I am observing, I am observing, I am observing. And that's the beginning step. Because right now, most of us are so pulled into the experience, we can't recognize, I am not this experience that is happening. I am simply observing this experience that is happening. But as the practice continues to develop, as you become more and more established as I am consciousness, I am consciousness, more and more you need to move away from I am consciousness and there's this thing happening out here to all of these things are happening in consciousness. They are made of consciousness. They dissolve back into consciousness. All of these things are consciousness. All of these things are me, oneness. And without that separation, when we begin to recognize that all of our experience, as it says here, the entire cosmos, and the entire cosmos, including the external world and the internal sensory system, is the object. And this object arises in consciousness, exists in consciousness, and is sustained by consciousness, and dissolves back into consciousness. And you are that consciousness. As you recognize that, as you become established in that, there is freedom. It doesn't mean you suddenly experience no pain, but the suffering that comes with that pain is nowhere to be found because the mind is not trying to create separation. The truth concerning the seer, experiencer, is that there is only the ever pure act of seeing, experiencing. There is only consciousness. Yet there arises a polarization on account of which a concept, which becomes the subject or the experiencer, thoughts, subject, the concept, seems to experience the reaction of the senses to the external world, all such externalization being the result of the polarization and the consequent apparent movement in the subject. Thought seems to become the one that's experiencing all of this, and thought gives rise to suffering. It's not that you should go around with no thoughts in your head. There's appropriate use of thought, appropriate use of mind. Appropriate use of mind causes you to reflect back, all of this is happening in consciousness. All of this is happening in consciousness. I am that, I am that, I am that. And your own, to this point, experience helps you realize that's not what the mind's been doing. The mind's been doing a lot of, screw you, world, I don't want this. The existence or the very meaning of the object is but the sum and substance of the subject's fragmentary experience brought on by the ignorant polarization. This fragmentary experience is the contact with pain. Again, we resist what's actually happening. We resist either the external events or the internal responses to these apparent external events, and that resistance shows up in the mind. And because it shows up in the mind, it then shows up in the body, and the body's happy to hold on to whatever the mind gives it. To him who has attained fulfillment, when the real nature, or as he says, the unreal nature, of the polarization of experience is truly understood, the contact with pain ceases, the resistance in the mind stops. The only way to avoid pain is never to be separated from it as the experiencer. The only way to avoid that suffering after smashing my thumb is to be completely at peace, accepting I have smashed my thumb and there is pain, and to be at peace with that. And there is body shaking because that's what the body needs to do, and to be at peace with that. And there is a person asking, are you okay? And to be at peace with that, and being unable to respond, and being at peace with that. And then being able to respond. And at no time beating ourselves up for what we have experienced. Yet the potentiality of polarization and the consequent contact with pain exist in other ordinary circumstances. This exists all the time. We're going to get tripped up. Hence, even an enlightened person may still experience pain when not in the total awareness of non-separation. This is not a permanent state. There are going to be events that are so huge in your life that you get pulled right into them. So what? Be pulled into them. And then as you recognize, oh, I've been pulled in, allow yourself to rest as consciousness. That doesn't mean disconnecting from life. It means to stop resisting life. When the polarization of the experiencing has taken place, the subject's desire or awareness of its own nature and its own voluntary and involuntary powers of action causes or acts as a link or contact between the subject and the object. This is what creates likes and dislikes. The mental activity of the mind is what creates our attractions and aversions. Obviously, all this is due to the ignorance of the spiritual truth, or oneness. Ignorance alone is the cause for the polarization, the fictitious separation, which is the sole cause for the desire to become aware of another and for the contact of the other. When that ignorance is dispelled, the polarization, separation, division, or fragmentation, and the consequent conjunction or contact of the experiencer and the experience is rendered meaningless. When I accept life as it is, when I let life come to me, when I recognize, oh, all of this is experiencing, this entire world, as it says in the Atma Gita, is made of this consciousness. He says, then this ignorance is dispelled, it becomes meaningless, it is given up. This is liberation for the seer. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, someone who is liberated can move among the objects of sense without fear. That line's almost repeated word for word in the Atma Gita, that we can go through life without having to fear what's coming up next. because we recognize all of life is happening here. It doesn't mean I now have control over the sun. And I can decide, well, today I would really like to have the sun just stay right overhead at noon for a couple of hours. That's not the point. That's not the purpose of this. But to recognize that there is harmony, there is balance in everything. And to recognize that all of this occurs within consciousness that I am. And all of this, which includes now this, occurs in consciousness that you are. Briefly, he says, this is liberation for the seer who is pure experiencing, or the undivided, homogeneous consciousness which alone existed, recognizing this is all one. All of this is one. Liberation is not isolation, nor independence from another. It's not cutting myself off from all of experience. It is recognizing that all of experience is one. But union in the sense of non-division, oneness. Briefly, the constant, unbroken awareness of this truth alone is the means to ending of this ignorance and its retinue. I am that. I am that. I am awareness. And my friend Chandrakant, he gives a very simple way to help you do this, or to help you kind of move toward this. I know we're just taking a little extra time this morning. He says every time you have you feel something you don't want to feel, remind yourself, I am aware of an unwanted feeling, or an unwanted sensation, or an unwanted thought. And start there. I am aware of something. I am aware of depression. I am aware of sadness. I am aware of a stubbed toe. I am aware of a bellyache. I am aware of a headache. I am aware. I am aware. Instead of I have, or I feel, or I am. I am angry. We are really wrapped up in that. I am aware of anger. I am aware I feel anger. It's not to say that the anger that is felt is inappropriate or invalid. But do you want to be controlled by that anger? And I've had people say yes, because I don't think I can follow through with the actions I need to take without that anger. And an hour later, I asked the same question as they sat peacefully, calmly. I am aware. And I said, do you feel like you have the motivation right now to take care of that thing that was causing you anger? And they're like, yes, I do. But instead of sending a text message or a phone call and getting all pissy, gripey, grumpy, I think I'm going to go talk to the person in person, face to face, and ask them what's happening that's kind of set this situation up, instead of being so in their face about it. I would imagine the experience was entirely different than what they had intended when the action was being fueled by anger. This awareness is keen, intense, and operative, even in the field of the first 7 of the 8 states or limbs of yoga, whose description follows. This practice should therefore not be a mechanical, unintelligent, and dull routine. When you get on your mat, are you just going through the motions? This awareness shines resplendent with the light of intelligence, when the inner psychic impurities that becloud the vision of truth have been eliminated by the intelligent practice of the limbs of yoga. Intelligent practice of the limbs of yoga. And I will repeat these last 2 sutras when we talk next. Intelligent practice of the limbs of yoga. I practiced yoga for 7 years, diligently, every day, touching toes, back bends, headstands, every single day. It did not resolve the depression I had been feeling. It would give me moments of freedom, glimpses that, okay, this might be, but just like my 38 years at that point or so of church attendance had not given me lasting peace. My 7 years of intense yoga did not give me lasting peace. Why? It was not intelligent practice. It was routine, mechanical, following the rules, checking all the boxes, doing all the things. I began practicing yoga intelligently because of these two gentlemen. And just like he said, my depression became rendered meaningless. That fast. It was that fast. Will it be that fast for you? Not necessarily, but something will be that fast for you as you begin an intelligent practice of yoga. And we'll talk about that next time. Thank you all for joining me this morning. So how do you escape? How do you cut the root of suffering? What is the source of freedom? Oneness. Oneness, oneness, oneness. Recognizing all of this and not only recognizing oneness, but not resisting what is, working with it. If something harmful is happening to you, accept that something harmful is happening to you and immediately do what is appropriate. And maybe that's running. Maybe it's leaving that circumstance. Accepting what is as is does not mean you have to stay in the mud. It doesn't mean you have to stay in the quicksand and drown. Oh, I'm accepting what is as it is. I'm in quicksand. I will die. It means accept. I am in quicksand. Stop. Don't fight against that. You're already there. Allow what's appropriate to come up next. I am in quicksand. Throw me a rope. Don't waste time. Oh, I'm so stupid. Why am I in quicksand? I should have noticed I'm in quicksand. Oh, you're wasting time. You're wasting energy. You're wasting your precious life by resisting what's happening. Instead of resisting it, recognize, oh, I'm in this terrible circumstance that might be dangerous. What would be the best thing for me to do to get out of this circumstance? Don't worry about the past. It's done. You're there. Okay? All right, friends. Again, thank you all for joining me this morning. Let's let the eyes close and we'll chant one sound of Om. Remember, Om, which represents everything as one thing, Om. It's talking about you. You are the divinity that Om means. You are the oneness of Om. Let's take a breath in. As you inhale, bring the hands to prayer position. As you exhale, let the eyes open. Jai Bhagwan. I'll see you again soon. Friends, for those of you who are here local, who may be preparing to come to class, remember there are no classes through the day, today or tomorrow. Tonight there will be classes at 7 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. here at Bhakti House. There will be no classes at Bhakti House tomorrow. If everything goes well with my mother's surgery tomorrow, we'll try to have regular classes on Wednesday. So stay tuned Tuesday. I'll let you know how things go. And Thursday, no classes here at Bhakti House. Well, there might be in the morning. Thursday is the beginning of the Meditation and Motion Retreat. You can still sign up for that. Go to the bhaktihouse.us website and click on Programs, Meditation and Motion Retreat. That begins Thursday night. If you're not able to attend the full retreat, just come Thursday night, leave a small donation for the temple. We'd love to have you. I would love to have you there. So again, that starts at 7 p.m. on Thursday. You can join us at 5 p.m. Thursday for dinner and a little bit of cultural enlightenment, or enlightenment, we'll call it that. That will begin at 5 p.m. on Thursday. That's optional if you're attending the retreat. And again, thank you all. Until next time, Jai Bhagwan.